Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives of families of critically ill patients in intensive care, so that you can have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In last week's blog, I've shown you why the often strictly academic view of the intensive care team might hold you back from peace of mind, control, power, and influence. You can check out last week's blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to give you the 10 commandments for peace of mind, control, power, and influence if your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. After I have worked with literally thousands of critically ill patients and their families in intensive care in more than 15 years, intensive care nursing in 3 different countries, I have learned many valuable lessons along the way. One of the many lessons that I learned was that families of critically ill patients in intensive care, generally speaking, have no peace of mind, no control, no power, and no influence if their loved one is critically ill in intensive care. In fact, families of critically ill patients in intensive care are often so overwhelmed, stressed, frustrated, paralyzed by fear. They feel vulnerable and they are really at a loss of what to do, and they simply don't know what questions they need to ask. The reality and the fact of the matter is that families of critically ill patients in intensive care are lacking a roadmap for how to go from point A to point B. Point A often means having no peace of mind, having no control, having no power, and having no influence. And point B means having peace of mind, having control, having power, and having influence. This is even more important if your critically ill loved one is facing one of the most intense and biggest challenges there are in intensive care, such as they are very unstable and in a very critical condition. They are in a life-threatening situation. They are in intensive care for long-term treatments and long-term stays. They have a severe or traumatic head or brain injury, or they are approaching their end of life in intensive care. During those challenging, difficult, and once-in-a-lifetime situations, the intensive care team often puts their positioning and their actions on autopilot because it's just so much easier for them to then deal with those challenging and difficult situations from their end, because the intensive care team doesn't often want to invest the emotional energy, the time, and the resources to deal with your questions, with your emotions, and quite frankly, with your insecurities. The truth and the fact of the matter is that if your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, until now there haven't been any blueprints, cheat sheets, or shortcuts how you can deal with this once-in-a-lifetime challenge. Up until now, the intensive care team remained in the driver's seat, and the intensive care team is driving the bus by driving their agenda forward that you and other families of critically ill patients in intensive care, generally speaking, have no idea about. The intensive care team's agenda is driven from behind the scenes, and decisions about the positioning of your critically ill loved one's diagnosis and prognosis are a direct result of the intensive care team's agenda. Therefore, it's more than overdue that families of critically ill patients in intensive care can get this crucial guidance, a blueprint, a cheat sheet, so to speak, so that they can have peace of mind, control, power, and influence. One of the stepping stones towards peace of mind, control, power, and influence whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, especially if they are in one of those intense, dramatic, and frustrating challenges where they are very unstable and in a very critical condition, or where they are in a life-threatening situation, or where they are in intensive care for long-term treatments and long-term stays. If they are having a severe or traumatic head or brain injury, or if they are even approaching their end of life in intensive care. Those are the situations where a blueprint for families of critically ill patients is needed, and therefore I have created the 10 commandments for peace of mind, control, power and influence if your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Therefore, let's get right into it. Number 1. Thou shalt not be intimidated by the intensive care team. Most families of critically ill patients in intensive care have no peace of mind, no control, no power and no influence because they are intimidated by the intensive care team's perceived power and by their perceived authority. The good news is that you can let go of it. You can let go of it now. The intensive care team's perceived authority and perceived power is exactly that. It's perceived, and therefore it's not even real. Therefore, you can change your perception now, and you will see the intensive care team in a different light. Number 2. Thou shalt start becoming difficult and demanding. The reality and the fact of the matter is that the intensive care team are so used to getting away with their perceived authority and their perceived power, and they are also so used by families of critically ill patients in intensive care sucking up to them that it's easy for them to continuously drive their agenda. If you want to achieve anything worthwhile in life, you need to look at what everybody else is doing, and you've got to do the complete opposite. If you look at what other families of critically ill patients are doing, then you'll find that they are nice and they suck up to the intensive care team. Those families of critically ill patients also, as a result, have no peace of mind, no control, no power and no influence. Therefore, you need to start becoming difficult and demanding instead. So stop sucking up to the intensive care team, demand more. And I bet the intensive care team will notice, because they are not used to it, and you will have taken another big step towards peace of mind, control, power and influence. Number 3. Thou shalt stop making excuses why you can't have peace of mind, control, power and influence whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Families of critically ill patients in intensive care come up with all sorts of excuses why they think they can't have peace of mind, control, power and influence. You need to stop making excuses, and you need to start taking charge and control now. Number 4. Thou shalt start asking the right questions. Most families of critically ill patients in intensive care who have no peace of mind, no control, no power and no influence ask either no questions, they either ask weak questions, or they ask no questions at all. In order for you to have peace of mind, control, power and influence, you need to start asking succinct and difficult questions that directly get to the bottom of the issues you are facing. The good news is that you have come to the right place here at intensivecarehotline.com in order to learn what the right questions are. Number 5. Thou shalt look behind the scenes in intensive care, because that's where all the decisions are being made. The intensive care team has an agenda to drive, and their agenda may or may not align with your critically ill loved one's best interest. Whatever the intensive care team positions as in the best interest of your critically ill loved one is a direct result of what's happening behind the scenes, such as financial pressures, bed pressures and medical research interests, to only name a few. Number 6. Thou shalt have your own opinion even if you're not a doctor or a nurse. Once again, the intensive care team tends to be quite opinionated, and families of critically ill patients in intensive care who have no peace of mind, no control, no power and no influence just go with whatever the intensive care team is telling them. Those families of critically ill patients tend to have no opinion on the subject matter. Remember, you are in a once-in-a-lifetime situation. You simply cannot afford getting this one wrong. You need to have your own opinion about what's happening. Of course, The intensive care team would prefer you not having your own opinion because they have to drive their agenda. But that's why it's even more important for you that you have your own opinion. Number 7. Thou shalt do your own research. Tying right in with the previous commandment, you need to start doing your own independent research. Thank God you've come to the right place for that. IntensiveCareHotline.com will give you the blueprint. It'll give you the behind-the-scenes insights, and it'll give you tips, proven strategies and shortcuts for you to have peace of mind, control, power and influence. Number 8. Thou shalt follow your intuition and your gut feeling and not get caught up in quote-unquote expert opinions by the intensive care team. Many families of critically ill patients in intensive care have no peace of mind, no control, no power and no influence because they get too caught up in the quote-unquote expert opinion by the intensive care team, and they therefore forget one of their deepest sources of wisdom, which is their intuition and their gut feeling. After all, it's you and your family who knows your critically ill loved one best. You and your family know deep down how your loved one can deal with adversity, and it's you and your family who knows whether your critically ill loved one can beat the odds or not. Don't neglect that deep source of wisdom. The intensive care team's quote-unquote expert opinion, on the other hand, always serves to drive their agenda. Number 9. Thou shalt turn the tables in your favor. The last thing families of critically ill patients in intensive care think about is that they can be in a position or situation where they can turn the tables in their favor. It's not what the intensive care team expects as well. But the reality and the fact of the matter is that if you start asking the right questions, if you don't take no for an answer, and if you become difficult and demanding, the intensive care team will notice, and as soon as they realize that you have done your research, as soon as they realize that you are not like 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who have no peace of mind, no control, no power and no influence, you will be treated differently. And the intensive care team knows that they are dealing with a powerful family. Last but not least, commandment number 10. Thou shalt display good and powerful body language. Listen, I bet the minute you have entered the intensive care unit, you and your family have displayed poor body language. Your arms are crossed, your back is hunched, you avoid strong eye contact, you have a weak handshake. In short, your body language screams of your anxiety and insecurity. Just by you changing your body language, just by you becoming aware of your body language, just by you starting to manage your body language to a body language that is powerful, secure and says to the outside world, yes, I can deal with this challenge and I'm ready to face whatever this situation is throwing at me, will get you peace of mind, control, power and influence. Once again, the intensive care team will notice, your family will notice, and your critically ill loved one will notice if they are conscious as well. Change your body language and the things around you will change. How can you have even more peace of mind, control, power and influence whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of peace of mind, control, power and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn quickly how to get peace of mind, real power and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language, so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions. Discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. How to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You get 5 killer tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to peace of mind, control, power and influence in your situation. You will get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You will get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. And how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care. And it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again in another update next week. Make sure you also check out our Your Questions Answered section, where we answer your questions, or send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update. Thank you.